Before we dive in, I'm going to share a story that I hope sets a chassis and a framework for your entire experience at Future Proof. And the story is about a very successful businessman who had a midlife crisis. He quit life, sold all of his possessions, packed a backpack to travel the world. His travels brought him to Tibet, where natives and locals told him about an old wise man that lived on top of a mountain. And the businessman climbed the mountain to find the old wise man. And one night, over a campfire, the wise man and the businessman sat together. And the wise man said, "Son, what can I do for you?" And the businessman said, "I need balance. I need balance." Anybody ever felt that before? The wise man said, "I don't understand." And so using the earth beneath his feet, the businessman drew a horizontal squiggly line in the sand. Up, down, up, down, up, down. And through the middle of the squiggly line, he drew a straight line. And he pointed at the straight line and he said, "I want that." And the old wise man looked up and burst into laughter. What? The businessman was so confused. And the old wise man pointed at the straight, flat line and said, "Son, this is death. This is life. One of the secrets to life is remembering the music in your head when you're at the top and all the things it took to get there. Because you will fall, and that is life." End of story. Now, I want that squiggly line and that straight line to represent a chassis for your experience at Future Proof. And I'm going to have you guys label it. So tap your rotator cuff, because I need you to raise your hand in a second. I have 2 questions for you. Question number 1. By raise of hand, generally speaking, who prefers comfort over discomfort in life? Comfort over discomfort. Statistically speaking, 99% of us should be raising our hands. We look like we're a little off, but second question, and a slight tweak. Who prefers growth over comfort? Right on. Here's the catch. You can't have growth without discomfort. And so at Future Proof, get uncomfortable. Go meet people. Go to sessions you don't think are relevant because they are. That squiggly line, ladies and gentlemen, becomes growth, discomfort, growth, discomfort, growth, discomfort. And the straight line, comfort, complacency, and we know where that leads. So get uncomfortable, and this great panel is here today to talk about all the things that make us uncomfortable and to share their lessons learned and their wisdom so we can take the discomfort and grow. So without ado, I'm going to have these guys introduce themselves because they can do it better than I can. Dana, I'm going to start with you. If you can start with your name, your role in the industry, and then what you're looking forward to in Q4.
Terrific. Thanks, Jackie. Everyone, I'm Dana Rhodes. Happy to be here. I am Chief Operating Officer for Extella. If you have not heard of our firm, it's because we went through a rebrand last year. We have a family of firms. We have 2 broker-dealers, Sigma Financial, Parkland Securities, and our RIA, Sigma Planning Corp. What I'm excited about, now, Jackie, you did say we could do one personal if we wanted to. So professionally, we've got our conference coming up next month where we're going to be rolling out a lot of new technology and better user experience for our financial professionals. Personally, this is my favorite time of year. It's fall, college football season.
Texas. Lori.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lori Hardwick. Most of you probably know me from being at Envestnet for 17 years. Was one of the original founders there. Then was COO at Pershing, and then now I'm really just doing board work and working with GenStar Capital, which is very active in the financial services world. I'm on the boards of Orion, Cetera, Cerity Partners, Vestwell, and DocuPace. And so excited to be here, and I agree with Dana. I'm an Ohio State grad, still have season tickets.
Go blue.
And that's what I'm excited about. I love football season.
All right, Shannon, bring us home.
I've got 2 kids. Well, one just graduated from Michigan, and one that is at Michigan, so we might have a little issue right here.
Yeah.
My name is Shannon Yusi. I'm the CEO, one of the founders of Beacon Point Advisors. We are a $36 billion RIA located about 15 minutes to the south, so nice and easy to get here today. I'm really looking forward to the conversation today because there is, and we had the conversation before, there are some uncomfortable questions about the state of the industry, so I'm excited to dive in and have the conversation.
All right, let's get started. We're going to start with a lightning round. We're going to go quick, one word or one sentence answers. Dana, I'm going to start with you, to Lori, to Shannon. The one word I would use to describe the current state of wealth management is?
Evolving, constantly changing in this environment.
I was going to say in transformation.
So I was going to take two words. I was going to say disruption, so maybe a little bit the same, and then opportunity. I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity in the wealth management space.
Cool. Lori, starting with you, the biggest tailwind in our industry is?
Biggest tailwind, I believe, is AI. I think there's a lot of technology at stake here. We're going to learn a lot about it today, but I think that's a huge tailwind for us.
Cool. Shannon?
Yeah, I would say the biggest tailwind is the transfer of wealth and the opportunity to serve women. I think there's so much opportunity there, and I think we're going to discuss that a little bit today as well.
Dana?
I agree with both of you. For me, it was AI, and particularly the efficiencies that it will lend to our business and how much I think it's going to impact our rate of change.
Well, let's talk about biggest headwind. Shannon, starting with you.
Yeah, I would say it's the opportunity to scale. I think many firms hit a point, and we talked about growth. Growth makes, we all want to grow, and it gets uncomfortable to, put in the effort to grow organizations, and I think it's really hard to scale. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of M&A in the space, because firms are having a hard time pivoting out of doing everything for their particular firm. If you're running a small RIA, that gets really hard. You're wearing the CFO hat, the COO hat. You're also in charge of bringing in the most growth in your firm. So I think we have to focus on scale for the business, and I think it's going to be hard.
Cool. Dana, headwind?
Mine is actually related to Shannon's, and not just scale, but I think the industry consolidation is creating some headwinds for us. It does provide a tremendous amount of disruption for the firms that are being purchased, the firms that are buying those firms that then have to integrate. So that was mine, is consolidation.
Mine is, and I think will always be, regulations.
Keeping us real. Lori.
Agreed.
I appreciate that. All right, Dana, last question. What did you think would catch fire 5 years ago that never did in our industry?
So for me, this one may be a little too obvious for all of you, but because I was probably working with Lori at the time on the robo-advisor, that's the one for me, right? We thought this was going to be this big thing. Everybody was going out and exploring solutions. I know some of you may have implemented a solution, but it never really took off. And I don't know if maybe we were before our time or if it's not ever going to take off, but that was mine.
Go ahead. Same.
That's the same?
And
You guys
funny
all
thing is
have the
we didn't-
same
we didn't
answer?
communicate, as you can tell, before
I
how we were going to answer.
I mean, I thought mine was going to be the one you guys all picked. The thing I thought was going to happen for sure 5 years ago is a better adoption of ESG. For whatever reason, it just never really took off in the U.S. It's wildly popular in Europe and other countries, but not here yet. So
Interesting. All right, Dana, I'm going to piggyback off of a word you used, which is consolidation. I think there's consolidation from a lot of different angles. And Lori, I'm going to start with you, given the diversity of boards you sit at. Many say there's a blurring of the line, collision of worlds happening. What is your perspective? And then perhaps more importantly, why is this happening?
yeah, sure. I mean, there's no question that it's a blurring of the line. Even when you look at RIA, broker-dealer, and even wirehouse, it's all getting a little blurry. I think one of the reasons is because, private equity has come into this space, and RIA is the hot dot. So everyone's going to be verging to where the puck is going and where they think the money is, and that is on the RIA side. Also, Reg BI really took us there, where they really enforced fiduciary as part of an investment advisor's role. I know they're here today, and I hate to really say this, but I don't hate it totally, because I have to hear it all the time that Fisher Investments is different because they're a fiduciary, and they're not different anymore. Everyone is a fiduciary. And every time I see that commercial, I feel the collective eye roll from all of us across the land. I'm like, good Lord, we need to band together and do an ad against them saying, we're all fiduciaries. But it does beg the question, where do you build differentiation now?
Correct.
Being an RIA it's not different. And, as we see these convergence, the other thing is that RIAs are continuing now to verge more towards selling some commission products like insurance and things like that. So, at times you say, well, we all stayed in our lanes really well for many, many years. And there is for sure going to be not just the convergence and blurred lines we see today, but it's going to continue. On the board of Cetera, we're buying RIA practices. So, there are, who would have ever guessed that would be a lane that would get crossed over, but it absolutely is, and it will continue to be.
Shannon, you want to add on?
I would absolutely agree with most of what you said. I think the difference is, I do think the RIA business is different. And I do think the firms that have been bought by PE on both sides of the business, the RIAs that have been purchased by private equity partners, aren't going into the broker-dealer space. There might be some commission products, but that's not the avenue where they're going to pursue growth. I mean, we are seeing the broker-dealer space go into the RIA space, certainly. But I think there's reasons. I think most RIAs have started as entrepreneurs. And I think as entrepreneurs, you can be a little bit more nimble in the space. You can do things a little bit differently. And you're not tied up with maybe the amount of regulation, and maybe that's coming. But you're not tied up with the same amount of regulation because we're not offering particular products to clients.
But where I would disagree with you on that, Shannon, and
be good.
all full due respect.
This is why we put them on one couch, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Well, it started with Michigan and Ohio State. But anyway, where I really do disagree is that there's a lot of RIAs out there who started in the wirehouse world and started in independent broker-dealers who are now RIAs. And that, maybe by definition, they're not entrepreneurial-minded, but they now are in this space, and they are adding to the competition across the board.
I'm curious, as you look at the blurrings of the lines, and maybe it's a skinny line, and maybe it's a really thick line, how does this play out for the next 5 years? What should the people in the audience be thinking about? What do they have to do about this? Is there any action to take? And Shannon, you sit squarely in the RIA landscape. What would your guidance be to RIAs here? And then Lori and Dana, you're active in the broker-dealer space. What's next with this consolidation and blurring?
Yeah, I mean, for our firm, we look at it as the unique value proposition we're giving clients today. And that may change. I'm not going to disagree that the broker-dealers are getting very heavily in the space, and there will be competition. We haven't quite seen it yet. That's not to say it's coming. I think clients are going to be the ones that are confused. What is the difference? And if there's no real difference, then maybe the wealth gets spread a little bit differently. Maybe you're not seeing the amount of money dive into the RIA space. I happen to disagree. I don't think it's going to be that blurry. I think clients are going to see what the distinct difference is. I don't know.
Dana, your thoughts?
So I've enjoyed watching you two spar back and forth. It's interesting because I can agree with both of you on a lot of points. I think for me, I see it as tremendous opportunity for my firm in particular because we do have an RIA. We are fiduciaries, much like Fisher Investments. And we also can offer insurance products as well. And I think what I'm starting to see more than anything is you talked about, Shannon, just the biggest headwind being scale. It's finding that firm that has enough size, enough capital behind them, that they do have scale, that they can remain competitive in this environment. But, also a lot of folks don't want to be a part of these super firms, right? And where you start to become a number. So I think for the mid-sized firms, it actually becomes a real competitive advantage because you do have the size for scale. You're not just a number. You can still offer that personalized service, but it certainly is a challenging environment.
It's culture, right? I mean, if you
100%.
If you peel it all back, what's the most important thing for a firm? It's the culture they have within the organization. And I think firms that are small and a little bit more nimble have the ability to keep that culture within an organization. And ownership, I think, is a real key differentiator in some of these organizations. And I'm not saying the broker-dealer doesn't offer this or RIAs just offer it, but many RIAs offer broad distribution of ownership, and I think that's incredibly important because we want to make sure that we're incentivizing the folks that are actually working directly with our clients.
Well, and the other thing I would add to that is that it is a lot about culture. I think it's a lot about the pace also, for which I see this happen a lot. I mean, even when I was at Envestnet and we acquired Prudential, we were mismatched from a pace perspective as far as, we wanted to get stuff done. We were scrappy, moving really fast, and the Prudential guys were like, not. So anyway, that that did not work out that well from a culture perspective, but I think it's still playing out when I see RIAs buying other RIAs. That pace that surrounds the culture is really important. And I think at the end of the day, the clients decide. I mean, the end clients are going to be the ones who really decide who wins, period. Yeah. And that will be based on service model. It'll be based on offerings that financial planning, tax solutions, individualized hyper-personalization of portfolio choices. And so I think at the end of the day, we'll see who wins, but that's how they're going to pick.
Well, we're not going to make any money bets here, but regardless of who wins, we all need organic growth in our business model.
But doesn't everybody win?
Oh.
I mean, not everything's made equal, but I think the amount of wealth that's transferring, the amount of wealth that continues to grow, I think you all win. Whatever model that you choose to go down. I happen to think there's some benefits to the RIA space, but I think everybody in this wins. I mean, all boats are going to rise here.
I agree.
I don't think everyone's going to grow. I love your question. Your next question. We're going to talk about organic growth.
Yep.
I don't think everybody's going to grow the same organically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So two topics I want to touch on: one M&A and one organic growth. Let's stick on organic growth. And you look at any of the stats. I don't care if it comes from Cerulli or McKinsey or whomever. Organic growth rates have been pretty dismal in the last 2 years. And so I'm curious, if you look at what's going on, why have we struggled with organic growth rate? And I think the more important part of this equation is, what do we need to do to reverse that and improve that going forward? And Shannon, I'll just let you keep going, but what got us here to where, as an industry, we're low? And then what are you guys doing at Beacon Point?
Yeah, I can tell you Beacon Point is growing organically and significantly above industry averages. And I think the reason for that is we've let the people that can make rain. So really trying to alleviate the things that get in the way of, maybe it's running the business, or we do an acquisition and they're stuck on compliance, or they're stuck doing things in marketing. It's really pulling those things off their plate so they can focus on the growth in the business. I think there has been a lot of distraction between this whole broker-dealer world, the RIA world, where do I put my money? I think that's hard for the smaller firms because they can't market like some of the larger players can do.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that organic growth now is around 3%, and that takes out market rate, growth. And so that is pretty dismal for how, especially given how much private equity money is coming in and it's really bullish on our industry. I think that the firms that do it right, as far as really being able to grow, like your firm, has the right tools at their disposal to be able to serve more clients per advisor. And that is, I know that Orion just did a wealth survey this year, and those firms that are using Orion are growing faster than their peers. And I think, obviously, I love to see that as a board member, but I also see it playing out when I see single shingle advisors out there who don't have any staff, they don't have the right tech stack to really help them achieve the next level of growth, and therefore they become stagnant.
I agree, and I think the reason you're seeing that with Orion is they're getting the economies of scale. They're probably outsourcing, but if not, they have great portfolio management software that can take some of that operational burden off. For us personally, where we're seeing the most growth within our advisor base, it's those that are holistic financial planners, not just planners, but charging fees for planning. I can't tell you how many times in this industry I've talked to advisors that give the planning away because they're getting the asset management fees. And so we've actually been growing that business by building programs specifically for advisors that aren't doing this today to get them to start charging fees, telling them how, empowering them with software. And we've seen the advisors that did that 1 year later increase their overall production by about 26% year over year. That was the average of the folks that went through that program. And it's, you could say they're getting more from fees, but they're also getting more wallet share. So I think if you're not doing that today, it's something that I would definitely suggest.
I was going to say, one thing you're saying is measure it. Because I think that's what a lot of us fail to do is measure the growth against your competitors, but measure it against the other advisors within your office. Because what you can measure, you can change, and you can see who's doing well, who's not doing well, and coach them up. And I think coaching is also super important for folks that maybe weren't in a sales position before, but are required to bring in new business.
Right, and I would agree, measuring is super important on that level. It's also important to make sure you're measuring your profitability. I think that can really turn over some new understandings of how you're running your business. And one of the things that I find frequently is that you're already tapping into a technology that can help you accelerate in other areas of your business that you're not utilizing. And you're already paying for it. The average amount, like percentage on, for any app stack, singular app stack that an advisor uses is 5 to 10% of the breadth of product or features and functionality that app offers you. So I really encourage everyone to take stock of where you already have invested, see where those firms have evolved over time, and see if there's some other areas for which you can not only tap into to help accelerate your growth, but also reduce your costs where you may be doing it manually somewhere else.
That's where AI can help as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. The flip side of organic growth, guys, is inorganic growth. Lori, you mentioned we're seeing a lot of it. PE is very bullish on our industry. We have a reoccurring revenue model that's very appealing. Shannon, I'm going to start with you and work my way back. But when it comes to M&A, you took on a capital partner a few years back after you grew. Talk to us about that. Talk to everybody in the audience who's maybe wanting to grow or considering a capital partner. What goes into that decision-making process, and who is PE money for and maybe not for?
Yeah, I think it's a hard decision, right? I mean, we took private equity capital at the March of 2020, so the height of COVID, or where COVID just started. And we sought private equity capital because we knew that we couldn't continue to grow at the rate we were growing inorganically, not organically. And by the way, I do think organic growth is the holy grail. I think M&A is certainly important for growth and earnings of an organization, but if those firms that you're partnering with are not showing organic growth, then not worth the acquisition. So we have a very keen focus on growing organically, but inorganic growth has been fabulous for our organization. As we look to continue to broaden the footprint across the country, we need inorganic growth. We chose our private equity partners. This was 2020. We went back out to the market in 2021, end of 2021. We had accelerated growth so rapidly because we had capital. So we knew that, gosh, if we had the right equity partner going forward that can help us with the overall organization and be a real strategic thought partner in the organization, we could just continue to grow exponentially. We partnered with KKR end of 2021, and they've been a phenomenal thought partner in the organization, understanding different structures of M&A, and also understanding just different business structures. So it's been really great.
Lori, question for you. You're with GenStar. You see a lot. You work with a lot of advisors. How do advisors set themselves up for success? Like, what do they need to do to get the eye of a PE firm? And then once that acquisition takes place, it's a pretty big transition. Mm-hmm. How do you be successful in that transition? What's the mindset, the models you need in place, et cetera?
Well, it really is an emotional journey. For those of you that have been through selling your practice, you're on a high because everyone says, oh my gosh, your business is great. This is so special. And it is, and I'm sure it is, and it's great. But then you get in, and it's like, oh man, where are all the things that I wanted, and how do I tap into them and really, actually have it help me grow as a business, you and many other advisors. The number one thing that I see is making sure that after you landed in the new nest, wherever that is, that you have some kind of relationship manager that helps you take advantage of all of the new things that you either need to adopt because they're making a consistent back end, or that you'd like to adopt, if it's alternatives, if it's a new financial planning system, if it's whatever it is. So I think that is super important because you will get surprised, and I've seen it happen many, many times where that landing is not a soft landing, it's a really hard and disruptive landing to your business, and then you end up in the whole next year kind of thrashing around trying to figure out what's next. And meanwhile, you have private equity usually somewhere in the mix, and they are really adamant that you're going to be growing. And so it's really important to get the puzzle pieces right before you jump in and make sure that they are right, because price isn't everything. Pick the culture.
I think that's so important, Lori, because I've seen it go both ways. I've seen it be really successful where you get that infusion of capital, you're aligned in your values, and you can really supercharge your growth. I also have seen it be a complete culture killer where it just kills an organization from the inside out. So I think finding the right partner, I think is just critical, and making sure, to your point, you've really vetted it and that you're taking advantage of the opportunity in the right way.
And talk to other advisors for whatever firms you're looking at, maybe, going to. Make sure you talk to those other advisors and ask what their journey was like, and ask them how they were able to really, tap into those extra services. And were they able to grow when they did? I think that would help a lot.
And more importantly is the culture, what they're telling you the culture is. And I always tell everybody that wants to partner with Beacon Point, or we want to partner with, is I don't care who you call that we partnered with. I'm not going to give you a list. Call any of them. Because I want to make sure that from top to bottom, every single firm that we've partnered with, we're doing what we said we were going to do. And we're coming to the table when they need us. And that's critically important. You have to trust, like, and respect the people you're partnering with.
I love that. I love that. Switch a topic a little bit. I was chit-chatting with some advisors before this session, and I asked what was on their hearts and minds, and fee compression came up. And so I think some folks have a perspective that we might have a value issue in our industry, and some folks might have a perspective that we have a pricing issue in our industry. And some share, is the 1% AUM model going to work going forward, ? And so I want to unpack what's going on with fees and values. Shannon, I know you've stated we might have a value problem, but we might not have a pricing problem. What are your perspectives here?
My personal perspective, based on what we've seen with our clients, seen with fees, we don't have a pricing issue. In the absence of value, clients are going to question price. We're not getting questioned on pricing. So I think if you have the right value proposition, you're offering the right services to your clients, you're not going to see fee compression. And we actually went back to our clients and actually raised fees. So I know it's not an issue.
That's my same experience. We've raised rates almost across the board with very little pushback, very, very little fallout across the board.
I think that where we're seeing it is a lot of times when I'm having discussions with financial advisors, it's that they're discounting the fees. The clients aren't asking them. They're feeling a pressure that may or may not be there, and then they're thinking, well, I can't charge this. I need to discount my fee because otherwise I won't win the business. And then, as I mentioned earlier, you've got folks that are charging an AUM-based fee. They're charging a financial planning fee. They can clearly define the services that they're providing, and clients will pay. They want those services, and they need them.
And especially, again, if we are measuring it. So if clients understand the value you're offering and how we can actually measure it, look, Sandy, I just saved you $15,000 on taxes. Or look, we've been able to do these things for your portfolio. We've been able to make these estate moves for you to save you, millions of dollars in asset transfers. So I think it's making sure clients fully understand, and us sharing with clients the value that we're giving them.
Right. And the one thing that I believe financial advisors have been terrible about is, we've hovered around that 90 basis points to 100 basis points of annual fees. Meanwhile, a lot of your infrastructure of technology and other things have increased in price, but you haven't increased your prices. to your clients. And I just think it may be a little bit of, what you were saying, afraid to ask, but don't be afraid to ask. The rates are increasing across the board. And like you said, in the absence of value, that is a question, but that should be a question regardless.
Yeah. And I think this is a really important topic because I think people are worried about fees and worried about increasing fees. It has to be well thought out. So we did a very thoughtful approach to increasing fees where we needed to increase fees. Went back to those clients. It was 99+% retention of those client assets. Clients, you may have seen 7 maybe out of the 100 asked a question like, hey, I don't even know what I was paying. So obviously we answered that question, but most of those clients stayed with the organization. If anybody, sidebar, wants to talk to me about what we did, I'm happy to share. It was a very thoughtful approach to it. We used our private equity partner to help us kind of work through. They're like outside consultants. It's like having a Bain team or a McKinsey team on your staff. It's been awesome. But it was a really, really great approach to going back to clients, and we saw tremendous success.
I love that. Let's stay on clients for a little bit. We've got a lot at play with demographics. We've got baby boomers going from an accumulation state to decumulation. You've got a shift in assets from men to women. You've got a shift in assets from G1, G2. A lot of the times we see firms paralyzed with where to focus and to think about these demographic shifts. Lori and Shannon, you guys stated, we're not doing enough to support women. I think, Dana, you guys are really passionate about next gen and doing things different. So let's unpack first with next gen. What is it firms need to be doing different to resonate with G2? And then Lori and Shannon, I want to talk a little bit about resonating more with women investors.
Perfect. I'll start with next gen. So I think for us, it's really been about a concerted effort. And it's something that if we're not making a concerted effort, then it's just things here and there. So we have a strategy behind it. I think for all of us in this venue, we have to change the way that we're talking about this business. We have to really modernize a lot of the things that we're doing. I think about websites. I look oftentimes for some of our financial professionals and others. I look at their websites and it looks like the old school, I paid someone to throw a template website together. It is not something that will attract the next gen. It does not at all look modern in any way. I think, too, we've got to start to tell our story differently. They are a storytelling generation. They are a heavily technology-using generation. And those are the things that we're going to have to do. And I think, too, what I love about this conference is everybody here, you look like your authentic self, right? And I think in this business, we've been just a suit for so long that coming to the table as our authentic selves and getting involved with that generation, meeting them at their level, I think that's really going to help. Now, how to do that, that's the tricky part. And that's where we're starting to vet some strategies and, white papers, blog posts, trying to get that out there to get more interest.
Yeah, I love it. This is a human business. Digital is part of the equation, but it is not 100% of the equation. So to Dana's point, website, self-service, chat capabilities, online scheduling, these things matter to the younger generations. Lori, Shannon, let's talk about what we're seeing that matters to women investors who are sitting to kind of inherit and bring some wealth. I feel like, Lori, I'm going to pick on you first because you see a pretty big gap here. What do you see, and what do we need to do differently going forward?
So the women issue actually ties back to the next gen issue. And here's how. McKinsey put out a paper about a year and a half ago saying that, we're in the baby boomers are aging. Women live longer than men. Women, once widowed, 74% of them choose a new advisor within 12 months. Think about that. And who's helping them choose a new advisor? Their kids. So their kids are then saying, look, and their kids, maybe my age, they're maybe in their 50s. And, well, I'm not in my 50s. No, I am. I self-outed. But anyway, they may be saying, look, we need something that has more streamlined, communications. We need things that are more transparent to us. We need to be able to move money around for you. And Accenture actually put out a paper a couple years ago as well that said 67% of people generally use whatever the technology is that the advisor is using as one of the three major determinants as to whether they'll hire that advisor or not. So that is another data point. And then last, I think, and I've seen it happen actually, like in front of my face, where someone's at dinner and they say, oh, that's a cool app. And you're like, yeah, this is my advisor's app. And they're like, you get that from your advisor? And you're like, yeah, you should call him. I'm going to call him. So with that level of kind of like in-your-face referral that could happen back to your firm if you have the right technology that will allow for that level of transparency and seamless communication and service, it pays off in so many different ways.
I love that. Shannon, anything to add to Lori's comments?
Well, it's not lost on me that it's an all-female panel, which I love. I would say women right now out-earn it. We outlive it. We divorce it. Well, we marry it, we divorce it. I think we have to, as an industry, focus on who's going to control the majority of wealth over the next decade. Some of the things at Beacon Point, this is not new to us. We've been doing this. It's been a passion of a lot of folks in our organization. Over 50% of our leadership team is female, obviously founded by a female. It's been a focus since early 2000s that the importance of getting to women, educating women. We wrote a book geared toward women to give them the basics of financial tips because we wanted to get more women to the investment table. I would say it's still not happening to the degree that we thought it would happen. So this huge wealth transfer, I think will come, and I think women will be at the table. I think women will start to make the investment decisions. So making sure they're equipped with the proper information, making sure you're there when they've got life transitions. Because if they are widowed and they do change advisors, they've got to have a very compelling reason to stay with your organization. We've seen it in our own organization. We've got a whole initiative around women. It's called our Women's Advisory Initiative, and it's really geared towards educating and empowering women around their finances.
Right. And the one thing I would just add about the great transfer of wealth, and I just heard this recently, actually on the Orion podcast. They were talking about how there's actually much more money in motion with living parents right now into the kids, to their children, that they want to gift a certain amount a certain year. They want to support big vacations and live while they see them enjoying these extra dollars. So this big transfer of wealth may not actually happen all in one full swoop. It may be happening little by little by little, but now's the time to get in with those next generations.
I was going to say, but think about that, right? So when they're planning that next vacation, and if you're not bringing that next generation into your firm for a family meeting, there's a significant lost opportunity. Or you're not asking about the kids or the grandkids or giving the next generation, the generation after that, jobs to do as it relates to their family assets. It's a significant lost opportunity. So some of the things you can implement is maybe a family meeting.
Go ahead, Dana.
I was going to say I agree with everything you said, especially on the next generation. And the other thing that I would add on women is we talked about the wealth transfer to women, but I would argue that probably on this stage, most of us make most of the financial decisions in our homes. And so I think there is still a population that defers to the man in the relationship. And I can tell you from personal experience, it's happened at my home. And my husband had me call the person and let them know that I was making the decision, but they didn't want to talk to me. So obviously we weren't with that person anymore. But I think just making sure that we're a part of the conversation.
I think engaging everyone, focus on life goals, Shannon, to your point, and bringing in the generations is important. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about our advisors who work so hard in this business. You know, we've got a bunch of advisors nearing succession planning, the end of their careers. We've got a problem, I think, with recruiting new, younger advisors, and I want to talk about both of those things. Dana, Extella really kind of prides itself on the next-gen platform. Like, what are you guys actually doing to recruit younger talent to the industry, and are there any tips or tricks that you can pass along to the audience?
That is a tough question. So I will just tell you, I mentioned we've got a program attracting that next generation. Right now we're leading with thought leadership, but we're actually building out a program to attract and train those next generation of financial professionals. And this isn't the old school, here's yellow pages in their phone book. They don't have that anymore. But, it's not the go sling some insurance and cold call a bunch of folks. It's really training them about this industry, about how to have a holistic planning practice. And I think for us, I also think it is starting younger. So, it can be something that you're doing locally. My daughter's in high school. They have a lot of financial literacy courses there. It's your local colleges. I'll tell you guys, and I've said this before in an interview I did a while back, I was pre-med. I'm obviously not a doctor. I graduated from college, and the University of Texas had a recruiting program. I did an interview with the CIA, and I did an interview with Invesco. I didn't know anything about this business, but I got a job at Invesco, and they taught me what I needed to know. So for us, I think the short answer is we're trying to then start those programs and train up that next generation and starting it early in the process.
I love that. Shannon, from a succession planning standpoint, what do firms need to be doing differently or better to help transition practices from one generation to the next or one owner to another owner?
Yeah, I honestly don't think it's necessarily super different than trying to attract new talent. I mean, we have to plan for it. I think we've sort of kind of stuck our head in the sand saying it's not really happening, but it's happening. So it's making sure that you're really thoughtful about your approach to succession, finding, and in many cases, because we see it through acquisition, is many cases finding that G2 person within the organization that's going to come up and take over that, and making sure they're very involved in the process, having the structure of the organization work such that it's not dependent upon one person, so making sure the clients are institutionalized to the organization. And I think that also helps with bringing folks into the business as well, maybe starting with an associate wealth advisor, moving to a advisor role, as opposed to just coming in as an advisor. So I think there's a lot of pieces we can be playing with, but I think the biggest thing I would say is make sure you're planning for it, because unfortunately it's happening a little bit too quickly and folks aren't planning for it. And then maybe creating different positions, because I know with a lot of our folks that are nearing retirement age, they don't want to retire. They want to stay in the business. It's a great business. So if you can focus on maybe changing up roles a little bit so that you have incredible ambassadors for your organization, because many of those folks were the biggest rainmakers in the organization and are still making rain. So I think about it as another growth strategy as well, because if you can get everything else off their plate, they can transition client relationships. You could probably increase growth for your organization.
Lori, anything you want to add on next gen or succession planning? Do we want to put up a slide for Q&A? Do the Slido? I think they're going to be able to pull up something. So if you have questions, you can kind of add them. While they're doing that, I have a question. I think you guys know the name Zig Ziglar. He was famous for saying, people only remember 10% of what you say on stage. And we said a lot up here on stage today. So if I can force you guys to think about the 10% this audience needs to leave thinking about and taking action on, how would you summarize that 10%? Lori, I'm going to start with you.
I can start. I believe it has never been, honestly, a more exciting time to be in our industry. I think it is wild. We're all going to be wildly successful. I really believe this. But it's going to take some homework. And making sure that you're looking at your back office functionality, making sure that there's efficiencies in your system. I mean, I work with DocuPace. They do, doc management. They do data transfer. If you anticipate using AI, and you should, you need to get your house in order when it comes to data. There's a lot of great consultants out there who can help you do that. Or you may be with a bigger firm that will help you clean your data lake and get it ready for what amazing things are going to happen with AI. So I think it's a massively exciting time to be here, but it's going to be some work.
Thank you, Lori. Dana, you want to go next?
Sure. We didn't talk about it as much today, but we did sort of touch on women in the industry. And one of the things that for me has been really compelling, and I know, Jackie, you and I talked about it whenever we did sort of our prep call of, do you want to speak at this conference, is just the support and supporting those in this business, being authentically you. And one of the things that I think has been so transformational for me in my career, and also for the firms that I've had the privilege of working for, is we get so much more accomplished together. And so going back to the Texas football, the motto this year is "We, not me." And I was thinking about that because we did a prep call together and we were talking about the challenges in this industry. And one of the things that I think you brought up, Shannon, is sometimes women, we tear each other down versus lifting each other up. And I think that as an industry, whether you're male, female, next gen, boomer, whatever, it's lifting each other up, helping that next generation. Lori, you are phenomenal at it. I think we've all gone to you for counsel at one point or another, but just, I think, helping each other out.
I love that. Shannon, what about you? 10%?
Would say the 10% is, and play off a little bit of what you said earlier, is our calling is to help clients. So I would say our calling is to serve more clients. And the only way that we can serve more clients is to get efficient, implement AI, implement new technologies, making sure you're building a business to scale, and then grow organically. Because if you're not growing organically, you cannot hire the best talent, you can't hire the best implement the best technology, which is also going to allow you to scale. So I think they're critical points, but I really do believe we're called to serve more clients. So figuring out a way to serve more clients, and I think we're all going to be able to do it.
Yeah, and I'd wrap us by saying value. Like if there's anything you take away, it's understanding and questioning the value as a platform you provide to your advisors, and then the value you're providing to your clients. Absent value, we heard people question fees, and value might expand into health and wealth and longevity and medical down the road. But really think about where the generations are headed and the value they're requesting. When you meet them there will be an abundant amount of folks to serve. And so with that, ladies and gentlemen, I didn't see any questions, where I can't read them. Can you?
How do you transition from giving away financial plans to charging fees?
When you have clients that are used to getting it for free.
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know if did you all hear that question?
I don't think
we were kind of stumbling through it. So how do you transition from giving away financial plans to charging for fees when you have clients that are used to getting it for free? Great question. And again, it goes back to price versus value. If you're already giving it away, I think it's a simple conversation, and it's not so simple, but it's a conversation of, we talked about prices in the market. Your technology costs are going up. Heck, I bought groceries this weekend and spent over $400. And I live in Texas, so California, it's probably more than that. I think everybody has been hit by changes in fees. And so I think it's, for you, it's being able to articulate, these are the things that I'm doing. This is how much I've saved you in your tax bill. This is how much value I've provided, and I need to now start assessing a fee. And I will tell you, I had a firm at a prior employer that had this same issue. They thought it was going to be a really difficult conversation. They went to their clients, and not one single client pushed back. So it was really more in their minds that they were concerned about it versus the client being concerned.
There are a lot of great questions. We will be around. Please come find us if you have questions. I'm so sorry we didn't get to all of them, but thank you, Future Proof.